This video is sponsored by Squarespace. Sometimes I have days where I just don't feel like it. I don't feel like getting up and taking my body out of my cozy bed. I don't feel like interacting. I don't feel like working, and I absolutely don't feel like tidying my kitchen bench. Usually these days are accompanied with feelings of just like bleh or eh. And those days are normal and okay. A million sayings apply to these days. This too shall pass. A bad week is not a bad life. But sometimes, particularly when those times start to stretch, there are things that you can do to help yourself get out of them. In the 4 agreements, the author writes, under any circumstance, always do your best, no more and no less. But keep in mind that your best is never going to be the same from one moment to the next. Everything is alive and changing all of the time, so your best will sometimes be high quality, and other times it won't be as good. When you wake up refreshed and energized in the morning, your best will be better than when you're tired at night. Your best is different when you're healthy as opposed to sick, or sober as opposed to drunk. Your best will depend on whether you're feeling wonderful and happy, or upset, angry, or jealous. At the workout class that I go to, they ask us to do this arm exercise once in a while. So you're basically pulling this big long string. They call it like the pirate sword. I am embarrassingly bad at this movement, but some days I'm like, yes, I can do this. And other days I'm like, absolutely not. This just isn't happening. And on those days where I'm like, absolutely not, I go slower. I have no shame. I'm pulling at this weighted rope, and I'm also helping myself pull because I'm having a rough day. On the days where I'm not feeling strong, I adjust what I'm doing to be less, to be easier, to be more doable. And if you're in a time where you're feeling bleh, think about how you can do the same. You do not expect the same output from a sick person as you do a healthy person. You shouldn't expect the same output from an energized, content you as you do a bleh you. So when you're feeling off, ask yourself, what does my best look like right now? And lower the bar for yourself accordingly. Let yourself put in 30 to 80% or less of the effort that you would normally do. This moves you away from not doing any of your healthy habits that make you feel good at all, but it also removes this weird idea that your performance should be at the same level every single day. Because when you're feeling off, it really can become a cycle. You feel bad, you don't do any of the things that you would normally do to make yourself feel good, then you feel worse. If you change the way that you look at things, the things that you look at change. Sometimes how you feel is completely circumstantial. Maybe you feel off because of something that your friend said or something that they didn't say. Maybe you feel because you have a ton of deadlines and they're killing your freedom. When you experience this, try asking yourself, how can I change the way that I'm looking at this? In the past, you might have tried to change negative beliefs, negative ideas about something, and you haven't had much success because usually they ask you to reverse your ideas completely. So go from a place of I'm bad with money to I thrive with money, or go from a place of I'm scared to no, I'm excited, or I've failed to I'm learning. And sometimes those reframes, they can work, but sometimes your brain has just etched these negative ideas about your circumstances in your mind so strongly that you feel like it's impossible to change them. Annette Pren is a Danish author and sociologist, and she's come up with a different approach when it comes to reframing. Instead of just picking one reframe for situation that might be making you feel off in your day-to-day life, like this fear is just excitement or this failure is just a lesson, try coming up with 30 different reframes. For example, if your current frame is that your busy work life equals stress, that is what is making you feel off, ask yourself, how would a 7-year-old view this? What would my favorite TV character say? What would my best friend say if I open up to them about this? How can I view this with a little bit of humor? What's a quote that applies to this scenario that I could embrace? Keep on coming up with different ways of looking at your current situation. Annette explains that when you do this, you mess with the neurons that are fired together in your brain to create such a strong belief about where you are and how you feel. That is a very simple recap of how she would explain it. And by creating 30 or so different reframes of your situation, then you can find 1 or 2 reframes that actually resonate with you, and then keep on reinforcing them to create new thought patterns in your mind. Not all circumstances should just be reframed. Some circumstances should be changed, but when you can't change the situation, try changing your framing. A while ago, my sister and I sat down and she was telling me how frustrated she was that she couldn't keep her bench clear. For context, she has 2 children. Keeping anything clear when you have children is very difficult. But she was really struggling with this and she was telling me about it, and I was like, I think we've had this conversation a few months ago. And after we had this conversation a few months ago, you decided that you were going to implement a new routine. You would clean the bench, you'd make yourself food for breakfast, lunch, or dinner, and then you would sit down to eat. You wouldn't let yourself eat until you cleared the bench. That was the routine, and it worked really well. Why don't you revisit it. So she did, and then she reported back and she was like, yeah, that still works. And I feel so much better and my bench is so much clearer. She just one day forgotten to do it and then eventually stopped doing it entirely. And sometimes we just need to revisit those things that we know have worked in the past. Look back and ask yourself, what has helped me to feel good in the past? Maybe you know from your work breakdown in 2019 that it's time to take a break, or it is time to talk to someone. Or if what you tried in the past didn't work, taking time off didn't actually help you, tweak it. Your emotions are messages, and sometimes they're just saying, hey, you need a day, but sometimes they're saying, hey, you need to change. Look back and ask yourself, what has helped me to feel good in the past? Everyone in their life has a whole bunch of buckets that need to be at least somewhat maintained. You've got your general self-care buckets. You need to sleep, you need to eat decently, you need to move every once in a while. All of those things, when maintained, will make you feel a whole bunch better as a human being. But everyone also has their own personal buckets, their own specific to them buckets, that if they don't maintain, it will leave them feeling weird. My personal buckets are learning, connection, growth, freedom, creation. And if I feel off and unhappy, often I can visit those buckets and go, yeah, that one is absolutely not filled. If you're not sure what your buckets are, I have a video on how to work out your values below, and also in my Skillshare course, I'll have that linked below too. Once you know your values, ask yourself, how in line am I living with my values? Draw out buckets for your values and actually mark how full each bucket is. Where are you lacking and what can you fill up more? And while you're there, do this for your self-care. Have you been eating well? Have you been moving? Have you been sleeping? Because there could be something severely lacking in your self-care and you don't even realize it. Use all of that information to give you direction on where to go next. Another thing that you can do if you are feeling off is take on a project that makes you feel excited. Alex Pang in his book Rest actually talks about how important it is for people, particularly people who have really uncertain jobs, to have mastery experiences in the form of things like side projects in their life. If you have a side project that you want to take on that might include creating a website, build it with Squarespace. Building a website with Squarespace is so easy, and I love easy, I love convenient, I love simple. I've talked about how when I was younger, I used to build websites and I would hand code them and I'd have notepad files for every single page, and it was a lot. Having a drag and drop website builder means that you can build a website in like minutes, which is wild. What I love about Squarespace is that there are no patches, no updates, no plugins ever. I love a tool that is low maintenance. Having maintained websites in the past and having to update them, make sure I got the patches, that I was updating the plugins, was genuinely stressful. It's just not something that I want to spend my time doing. So having a website builder that just does that all for you and you just don't have to think about it, beautiful. It's how every tool should work. If you have a new side project, a blog, or something that you want to start, perhaps a personal website, you can start your free trial at squarespace.com/MichelleB and use the code MichelleB to get 10% off of your first purchase. I actually recently redesigned my website with Squarespace. Basically, you pick a template, you adjust that template into how you want it. I added things like an about page, a favorite books page, a tools page, and it was a super quick process. Some of the world's biggest companies, businesses, YouTubers, influencers use Squarespace. If you want to sign up to Squarespace and start your own website for 10% off of your first purchase, use that link in the description below, squarespace.com/MichelleB. To end this video, I do want to say self-help is wonderful, it's great, but sometimes you need help from an outside source. This video is targeted towards people who are feeling bleh, but know that they can get out of it and they feel like they're capable of moving out of that space. It's just a normal bout of blehness. If you feel like what you're feeling is not a normal bout of blehness, it's something bigger than that, I encourage you to seek help, and I'm gonna have some resources down in the description below. If you liked this video, you might like a whole playlist that I actually have for people who might be feeling a little bit demotivated right now, who need a pick-me-up. I appreciate you so very much, and I will see you soon.